Hi, everybody, and welcome to this edition of SoCal Prep Report. I'm Rich Estrella. I'm Bob Gibson. Bob, I was trying to remember what camera I was supposed to be on right now.
This one over here, I think.
Are telling us about it. Hey, either way, thank you for joining us tonight. We're certainly glad you joined us. Along with me is my colleague, Bob Gibson. And man, Bob, we talked about Mission Viejo and Rancho Santa Margarita last week as the big game preview, and it kind of lived up to the hype after all. It was a pretty close game, 28-23.
Yeah, it certainly did. In the second half, we talked about it. You know, was it going to be the Santa Margarita offense or the Mission Viejo defense that ran that show? Well, it turned out to be that Mission Viejo defense in the second half, which threw a shutout until there was just 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Finally Santa Margarita got back on the scoreboard. But pitching that shutout in the second half really went a long way. And Mission Viejo's got to be happy with where they're at right now. And they look like one of the best teams in Southern California easily at this point.
Well, you got to give it to them because Santa Margarita going into that game had a pretty high power offense. You know, they were scoring a lot of points, Bob. I mean, they were over 40, 45 a game. And
they still had a couple of 100-yard rushers in the game. So, you know, they got theirs, but when it came down to it, Mission Viejo's defense really stepped up. And they got really what is a big win for them. They're going to go into South Coast League play. They're going to do very well in the South Coast League. I think it raises more questions for Santa Margarita. Who are they? What's their identity as they go into the buzzsaw that is the Trinity League in football? So we'll see. Santa Margarita's going to have to step up their game now, I think, offensively. Go back to the film, look at what didn't work for them, because it only gets harder and harder when you get into the Trinity League.
You know, there's only a handful of Orange County public schools that can hang with the Orange County private schools. They're just loaded, man. And Mission Viejo this year looks like one of those schools that can possibly, I don't want to say come out of nowhere, because we all know where Bob Johnson's always in the hunt, but he could be one of those schools that can contend, especially after a game like this.
Well, the 154 of the 176 yards rushing for Mission Viejo was in that second half. So they turned on their offense. You know, they got what they got going. Killy Arnold, 116 yards and a couple of touchdowns for Mission Viejo. So, you know, we had more questions about their offense and whether they could score a lot of points. You know, they got the job done offensively. So as I said, you know, they're going to do okay. You know, they're not going to have to play the big boys when it comes playoff time. They get to move down a couple of notches, and they don't get to play the Trinity anymore. But that big win on their resume, you know, that tells you, hey, Mission Viejo's the team to beat wherever they get to in the postseason.
Absolutely. And you look at that score. Where's Santa Margarita go from here, Bob? You know, now they got to go into the Trinity League, man, and that's not fair for anybody.
It's not fair for any of those teams. You're absolutely right. I think the Eagles are going to be just fine. Everybody in that league is going to make the playoffs. We know that. They're all going to be top-level teams. I think Santa Margarita probably ends up finishing second or third in the league, depending on, and we'll talk about Bosco, I think, a little bit later on in the show.
We will.
And depending on what Bosco team shows up. I think Bosco's on the come. I think it's going to be Bosco and Mater Dei again. It's a fight for third place. I think Santa Margarita right now is clearly that third place team, although Jay Sarah and Orange Lutheran.
Orange Lutheran, man. Come on now. We're going to talk about them here in just a second.
I hear you. I hear you.
It's, you know, it's such a tough league again. You know, here we have, looking at the national picture, you got, what, 3 schools from one league in the top 10 or something like that. Something crazy.
Tell me Santa Margarita is the third place team in that league right now, I'll say okay. Tell me Jay Sarah is, I'll say okay. Tell me Servite is, I'll say okay. I mean, any of the 4 down in the which you consider the bottom of the Trinity, any of those 4 could beat anybody else on any given week. It just happens to be they all play in the Trinity League. Then they're all going to have to play Bosco, and they're all going to have to deal with Mater Dei, and that is no easy task.
Well, back to the old saying, the more things change, the more things stay the same. Whether it's Bosco, whether it's Mater Dei, that Trinity League still has the 2, you know, those are the 2 top mainstays usually every year, and everybody else is pretty darn good, though, and can do well in other leagues if they were on their own. Let's continue on now. Let's take a look at St. Paul Warren ball game, a 29-28 game. You know, years ago, this game would have never been played. St. Paul would have just taken these guys to task, scored 60 points on them, would have been the end of it. But Warren hanging in there. Warren now in the San Gabriel, obviously in the San Gabriel Valley League, but their head coach is Raul Lara, formerly of Long Beach Poly. He's won like, what, 6 CIF championships, and he's trying to get Warren turned around. And that may not seem like a big win over St. Paul, which is a very small parochial school, but trust me, that's a big win for Warren. And if Lara wants to continue in that rugged San Gabriel Valley League, man, every week it's a fight. And they're going to lead up to a date with their crosstown rival Downey.
Well, anytime you see the word St. Paul on the schedule, you know it's one of the legendary schools in all of Southern California. The Marian Ansich days of yesteryear over there, you know, St. Paul was one of the top teams anywhere in Southern California. Always a team you wanted to play on your schedule.
No, you didn't.
Well,
no, you didn't.
You wanted your chance at least. You wanted your chance, Adam.
You wanted to get on that schedule.
You only got one chance, but you're right. For Warren, that's a big winner. For Raul Lar, you know, Raul Lar is a guy who knows how to coach football. He's done it. He won all those titles at Long Beach Poly. We know he knows a lot about the game of football.
A little bit about it.
He's gonna be able to take those kids over there and turn that program around. He could turn any program around. That's how good a coach Raul Lar is.
You're doing really well indeed right now. Let's continue on the scoreboard. Take a look at this was a national game because, let's face it, Bosco's ranked number 4 in the country, and then you had St. John's from Washington, D.C., ranked number 18. Very good ball game. You see the final score, 21-17. That's what you expect when you have 2 top 25 teams playing nationally.
Well, and now we've got a little bit of a quarterback controversy coming out of this game. Is Real Mitchell threw a couple of interceptions. You know, he came out of the game.
You're playing St. John's, my friend.
I hear you. I hear you. But DJ Ugalele, a sophomore, came in, threw a couple of late touchdown passes, got Bosco over the finish line. They got a big win. You're right. They're on the road. If they would have lost that game, nobody would have faulted them. You know, you're way out in Washington, D.C. You know, that's a tough place. But Bosco got it done. Now they've got a sophomore who can throw the ball. I think, and you know, head coach Jason Negro said, hey, all the positions are up for grabs. Coach always says
Everybody
that,
says that. Come on.
Everybody's competing every week, including the quarterback position.
Right.
But Real Mitchell's won a state title at quarterback. We know he's out there. But I think what this proves now, Bosco can take Mitchell. They can move him and play him all over the place. He's such a good runner with the football. He can catch the ball. He can run. Now, if you want to put this sophomore in, Ugalele, you want to make him the throwing quarterback, you know, quote unquote. I think you got a chance right there to give some teams some different looks, which they haven't seen now a couple of weeks into the season from these Bosco Braves.
You got to give it to Bosco. And years ago, this would have never happened where you see a team like St. John Bosco. I think they've already played 3 teams in the top 25 nationally. But you know what? You should be playing those schools. But then again, you go to Trinity League now, Bob. We talked about it again and again and again. These guys are so solid from top to bottom. Basically, it's those guys and everybody else nationally. It really is.
Look, if you're Bosco, if you're Mater Dei, you have to be playing all these top teams nationally, not just locally.
Right.
Nationally, you have to. If you're going to be the team that is in the national championship picture, and these schools definitely are, you're going to have to play these schools, and this is what they've done, and all the other schools are in it too. And look what they're doing. Look what Bosco and Mater Dei have been able to do so far this season. It's incredible.
All right, let's continue on. Look at Kennedy and Sunny Hills. Kennedy, of course, is in La Palma. Sunny Hills out in Fullerton. Sunny Hills is one of those brain schools. You know, you don't go to Sunny Hills to play sports. You go to Sunny Hills because you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, scientist, or something crazy like that. This is one of the top 10 schools nationally that does well nationally. I mean, everybody gets a 2,400 on their SATs that go there.
Hey, Sunny Hills also has one of the top boys basketball teams every year. Don't kid yourself. They have a great basketball program at Sunny Hills. And Gary Carter, may he rest in peace. Gary Carter, the Hall of Famer,
catcher
with
the
the
Mets.
Sunny Hills for the Mets, right? Went to Sunny Hills High School as well. So,
anyways, this is a
big win for Sunny Hills.
This is a big win for Sunny Hills.
I think it is too.
I'll tell you why. Sunny Hills has just had terrible football teams for years now. Okay, again, it's an academic school. It's not a football factory like Mater Dei or Bosco, the schools we talked about.
Not even like Kennedy has been in the past.
Not even like Kennedy, right? Kennedy's got a great program. They got great facilities out there in La Palma. But for Sunny Hills to actually go in there and just take Kennedy to task the way they did, Bob, it says a lot about what's going over there at Sunny Hills right now.
Well, that's a turnaround, and we see it. We see a program will get themselves turned around. They'll get a crop of athletes that come in, and a team that you don't think has ever done anything in 10 or 15 years, like a Sunny Hills, will come up and have a couple of seasons. It's fun to see.
Sunny Hills has 1 loss on the season so far. 4-1.
That's fun. You want to root for a team like that. You want to root for a program that comes, the Bolsa Grandes of the world who struggle, and then they finally get a winning team.
Now, they're going to beat La Havre this year?
Well, come on now.
Okay, we're not talking just.
No, that's a game they want.
We're not going crazy there just yet. No, not at all. But congratulations, Sunny Hills. We'll see how they continue on. Let's look at the top 10 this week. This isn't the Southern Section top 10. This is Bob, well, it used to be Bob's Touch. I took it away because Bob put Sarah in there 1 week.
I know. Sarah was there, and Sarah, you probably did the right thing.
I loved it. It doesn't matter. But it's pretty much the same business, with the exception of Mission Viejo over Santa Margarita, and that's the only flip-flop right there. Surbat moved up to number 8. You still got the same 1 through 7, modern-day Corona Centennial still, who has another week off, by the way. They're going to be real healthy. When Corona Centennial comes out and it's time for league, heaven help the league, because nobody's going to come within 50 points of those guys.
Look, I'm going
to Santiago.
I'm going to take you to task a little bit on this top 10 right here. I might have to take this thing back
over.
Go ahead. I would move Mission Viejo up to number 5 at this point. I would move them above J. Sarah even at this point, and I would make J. Sarah prove they belong in that number 5 spot.
Bob, this just proves you're the king of hyperbole, dude, and that's all this is, all right? You're just trying to make trouble out here.
I think I do that. Win over Santa Margarita is so big, I would have moved them up 4 spots in this top 10.
It is so early, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. This is just all fodder anyway, right? All right. Let's take a look at the city section. Now we got Randy Rosenbloom has a report for us. Going to talk a little bit about the city section. He's coming to you from Taft High School. Let's go to Randy.
Hello, everybody. I'm Randy Rosenbloom, and welcome to our LA City Report. Tonight, I'm out at Taft High School. Taft playing Hamilton in prep football. Speaking of football in the city section, you know, this year they're going to have an open division. Who might be the 8 teams that qualify? Well, certainly I know 6 of them. All 6 have outstanding running backs. You start with Narbonne, the 3-time city champions. They have Jamar Jefferson, terrific running back. Then you got to think in terms of the team that was runner-up last year, Dorsey. They have a great running back in Charles Mincy Jr. He's only an 11th grader. I like San Pedro's chances with Sean Davenport. Davenport had a game this year where he rushed for over 200 yards against a very good Downey team. Even though his team lost, Davenport was over 200 yards. At Carson, they're talking it up about Ja'Cory Poe, big, physical, talented running back. That's why they're very optimistic for that team at Carson. The Colts are turning it around this year. And then there's Birmingham with Shane Bennett. Saw him against LaSalle, ran for a couple touchdowns. He is an outstanding player, giving Jim Rose a legitimate, great home run threat in his backfield. And at Crenshaw, they have 2 good running backs, Nigel Lewis and Mark Martin. The Cougars have a shot come playoff time. Those are some of the teams that might get it done, and they all have great running backs when they go into the open division. There's another school with a great running back. That's Torres High School. The Toros are 4-0. And they have a running back in Taquan Gilmore, who is fabulous. He rushed for over 3,000 yards and 33 touchdowns last year. And he's picked up where he left off last year. He's over 1,000 yards already. He's averaging 17 yards a carry. Gilmore has a 4.45 40 dash time. He is cat quick. When he hits the hole, he's gone. He's tremendous. The Pac-12 schools are looking at him. He's a great credit to city section football. Gilmore is outstanding. He's also a very good dancer. So you can just imagine on the football field, Gilmore's dancing all over the place. In fact, in one game this year against Verdugo, he had 7 touchdowns, 7 of them. Punt return, kickoff return, 4 rushing touchdowns, and he intercepted 1 for a pick 6. Gilmore is fabulous. I want to talk some volleyball. Maya Stewart here at Taft High School is lighting it up on the volleyball court. She's an outside hitter, 4-year player for Armand Mercado. I said she's an all-city player. Why not? She gets spikes, 5-6 spikes in every set. She's tremendous. Not tall, but she's a high riser, a high flyer on the outside. Maya Stewart is a fabulous player, and she makes Taft a real threat in the West Valley, where Granada Hills and El Camino are the favorites. And before I let you go, got to talk about the Moose. Mike Moustakas, the great baseball player, formerly for Chatsworth High School, where he set state records for home runs when he was a prepster. While he's doing it at the major league level, he hit his 37th home run for the Royals last week at Toronto. That's an all-time record, breaking Steve Balboni's long-standing mark dating back to 1985. Moose has hit 37 this year. Now he is the standard bearer in Kansas City Royal history. And I talked to him before the season out at Pepperdine when he was working out in Malibu. And he was working out like you couldn't believe. He was injured last year, missed the season. He came back with purpose, and that's why he's been able to set the KC all-time record. Those are some thoughts from the city section. Now back into the studio and Rich Estrella.
Thanks, Randy. Appreciate it. Again, that's the LA City section, Bob, a lot of action out there, a lot of great athletes. They're all over the place, man.
Well, you know, we talk a lot about Southern section football, but the city section always has top-end athletes.
Totally.
Every year. Every single year.
I think per capita they send more out than the Southern section.
Oh, no doubt about that.
I think they do.
No doubt at all.
All right, let's take a look at the high desert. That's a place Bob's never been. And we got Carlos Peña with this report.
I'm on my way.
Hi folks, how you doing? This is Carlos Peña bringing you football from the high desert. Tonight we have Silverado facing off with Estrella. Let's take it to the action now. Opening action, Taj Butcher, number 2, took the ball for a 27-yard ride. On the following play, Silverado number 4, Darius Allen, ran the ball in from 2 yards out, giving Silverado a 6-0 lead. Silverado quarterback Levy Taylor decided to keep the ball and run this ball in from 1 yard out, making the score 13-0. Second quarter action, Silverado number 15, Levi Taylor, threw his 45-yard pass to number 3, Devon Candy for a touchdown. Silverado leading 25-0. Levi Taylor completed this 10-yard pass, making the score 31-0 at the half. Silverado quarterback Levy Taylor completed this 48-yard pass, making the score 38-0 with 10 minutes left in the third. With 3 minutes remaining in the quarter, Silverado pushed through for this 1-yard score. Late in the fourth quarter, Estrella would eventually find the end zone, ending the game at 44-6. Let's take a look at the scores from around the desert. Burroughs over Barstow, Oak Hills 45, San Gregorio 12. Silver Valley 58 easily over Bishop Union 19, and Big Bear wins big over 29 Palms. Let's take a look at some stats from around the desert. 2 outstanding quarterbacks from the high desert throwing for the same exact yardage. Levi Taylor, Silverado, and Austin Griffin from Burroughs. Rushing yards to Sean Brown leading with 535 from Granite Hills, followed by Kevin Lockey, 442 from Barstow. In receiving yards, Latleon Stables has 460 yards from Silverado, followed by Bryson Pippin and Deonze Nolan. Defensively, Seth Baker leads the desert with 63 tackles this year so far for Apple Valley. Brock Mather follows with 54 and Donovan Williams 47 for Apple Valley as well. And that's your High Desert Sports. See you next time.
Thanks, Carlos, for checking in on the high desert for us, because like I said, Bob ain't going. Right, Bob? Come on.
One of these days.
One of these days. Yeah. I'd like to mention the player of the week. And you know what? Accolades always go to the running backs, the quarterbacks. Sometimes the wide receivers get some love, right? Well, what do we have? Clark Phillips III from La Habra High School this week.
What did he do?
He not only returned one touchdown, one pick six.
Right.
He had 3 pick sixes in one game.
Pick sixes.
And they weren't short. They were 30, 42, and 60 yards. Let me tell you something. Intercepting a ball is good enough, but trying to return it not once, twice, but 3 times, and the last one for 60 yards? Are you kidding me? Clark Phillips III.
I don't care what anyone else did. That's got to be player of the week.
That's something right there.
That's more than something.
You know, it might have been an average night for me back in the day, but times have changed, Bob. Things are a little bit tougher now, right?
Your foot speed's not quite what it was.
Not quite what it was. No, sir. All right, let's take a look now real quick before we move on to the national picture. Bob, the thing with the shoe deal, it bothers me. The collegiate shoe deal came out just yesterday that the FBI is looking into collegians and possibly having street agents and coaches steering players to certain teams in the collegiate world. And I got to tell you, really? You just found out about it now? Me and you've known about this for 30 years, Bob. Where's the FBI been all this time?
People acting like, oh, they just uncovered the lid on this thing. Right.
Yeah. The Pentagon Papers are here, man.
It's the worst kept secret in all of sports. And a lot of assistant coaches are under federal arrest right now.
Yeah, isn't that kind of weird?
No, it's serious business.
But
right
how is it a federal crime for me to say, hey, Bob, your kid's the greatest thing. We want him to go to Cerritos College down here this week. I'll give you 10 grand.
And you know, maybe that's the way it should be. You know, maybe if I say, hey, you know what, this kid has all the talent in the world, and you open it up and you let a school, which is a money-making venture. These schools are not, not for profits. Certainly not. They're in it for the money. They collect all the money. They sell the jerseys. The kids get nothing out of it. You know, they get a scholarship, which is nice. That's worth some money. But let's look at it. A lot of these are football factories,
absolutely,
basketball factories.
But it's basketball that's busted, not football.
No, I agree. But I'm just saying that's why these kids go to school, is to learn to become basketball players. They're not going. They might get to come back and get their education later. But at the time, 18, 19, 20 years old, they're learning to become basketball players so they can go to the league and make the big money. That's exactly what college basketball is. Let's not kid ourselves.
Well, true. And again, as we've all known for years, this has been going down since Vaccaro started all this, branding of players and all this other stuff with Nike. It's and Adidas, and there's a ton of them now. There's a million. Even your boy Lonzo.
Look, the
ball. My brother.
Lonzo's doing it, though, off his own kids. He's not out there exploiting anybody,
not
right?
Lonzo.
LeVar. Excuse me, LeVar. LeVar says, you know what? I got 3 sons. They're good basketball players, and I can build a business off of that, a family business, which is what he's done.
All right, real quick, the commentary. How does it relate to high school sports? Well, guess what, man? It's going to trickle down, all right?
Big time.
Now, all you guys out there, you already know what I'm talking about. Those of you who have already been through AAU basketball or NJB, have already been through all that song and dance with street agents telling you how great you are. Think about this for a minute. Only 60 guys get drafted every year into the NBA. 60.
Yep.
Think about it. And there's 60 million people trying to get into the league. Right. Now, what's going to happen now is going to trickle down to the high schools, because they're literally in Southern California alone. There is an arena built with Nike money. Mm-hmm. And there's no question about that. And not just them. They've been spreading their money around to everybody. It's going to come back to the high schools at some point. And you got to wonder, what are the repercussions now? I'm sure Commissioner Wygod's going to have his hands full pretty soon.
Well, the $100 handshakes have been going on for as long as there's been amateur sports. We've seen that. There's no way to stop any of that, but you're right. This is a curious time to be a commissioner of a southern section. You're right. Commissioner Wygod's got a lot of stuff ahead of him to make sure that his athletes don't get caught up in this kind of stuff.
Bob, it's trickled all the way down to high school
a
long time ago.
Of course it has.
Shoe companies have been sponsoring teams for years. Why all of a sudden are they going for it now? And why name 8 or 10 schools, a handful of schools, when you know the entire NCAA, in terms of the basketball programs, have accepted money from shoe companies, and everybody's got a street agent.
Why do you think the 4-letter network takes signing day and makes it a big 18-hour day or whatever?
You're right.
Just to see where all these high school kids are signing to go to college? What do you think that's all about? You think there's any money behind that?
All right. Sorry, Bob. They're giving me direction to have me going the wrong way. You know it's opposite on TV, right? You go one way, you go the other. Yeah, I got you.
That's not mine, right?
Well, Bob, we'll see what happens. If I'm Commissioner Wygod, though, I've really got to – I have to start looking into it, because it's going to all roll downhill.
Very true.
They start at the high school level. They get pushed into different schools. They've already named, like I said, in Arizona, USC. Rick Pitino lost his job today. He lost his 2 prize recruits today. Do you realize Louisville now has nobody in the class of 2018 signed right now?
Louisville's done. Right?
Everybody's split.
Louisville might end up getting the death penalty out of this. Who knows?
Man, well, they probably should right now, based on everything that's been going on over there, starting with Coach Pitino and what he did a few years ago in that restaurant. I mean, it's crazy.
I think he's finished. I think Rick Pitino's finished as a head coach.
He doesn't need the money anymore. All right, well, enough of that. The reason we're just warning you, because this is going to be a topic coming down the hill here pretty quick, Bob. Basketball season's around the corner, and this is predominantly a basketball issue. All right, let's take a look at the national picture right now. Take a look at see the local favorites that are there. National picture is really big this year. As you see, there's a plethora of Southern California schools in the top 10 and in the top 25. Mater Dei still sits atop along with ING Academy. Everybody pretty much won last week, Bob. And some schools, of course, still haven't been able to play. You got all the Florida schools in there. They're starting to play this week, though. They've already, matter of fact, some did play last week. We got a newcomer to the top 25, and that's Allen, Texas, Bob.
Well, that's big, and then any school in Texas is going to be eligible for this top 25, because Texas, I think, although Southern California's got a right to say, hey, we're the area now, but Texas is still king when it comes to high school football. Look at Mission Viejo jumping in the top 25 there at 24. They're right there. Look, everybody's going into league play now, and teams like the Mater Dei Bosco matchup is going to go a long way. Centennial's going to roll through their league, here locally, and most of these schools will roll to league championships. It's kind of a foregone conclusion. It's just a matter of who is able to get to that state championship in most of these cases.
Well, I already tell you right now, I mean, it's going to be tough. It's either going to be Bosco or Mater Dei or Corona Centennial getting into the Division I game in California.
And those are the 3 schools right there.
And they need to get into that game if they want to be national champions. It'd be great, you know, but you want to be national champ, so you got to get into the state playoffs.
One thing you notice missing from that list, though, from California, no Northern California schools.
Well, there's no Concord de La Salle anymore. Concord de La Salle gets everybody.
They're not the program they used to be.
No.
Once upon a time.
No.
Still pretty good, but not quite that level anymore.
No. Let's go back to the top 10 real quick and take a look. If you notice, Mission Viejo moving up to 24 from 25. Yeah. They had a nice win last week. I think they should have moved a little bit more, but again, there's a lot of schools in between. Chaminade dropping down to 16, Bob. I'm still not sold on Chaminade being a national power. I don't know why. Maybe because they've never been there before, as far as I know.
And you're probably right, because we're not used to seeing, you know, that name in there. But we'll see. You know, all these schools, you know, it's in their own hands. I mean, whether or not they stay here and whether or not they go on to play for championships, you know, it's right in front of them. We know how good these schools can be. Can they keep it up?
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the preview of this week. Let's take a look at some of the games we want to talk about as we come up to Notre Dame, Almany. Now, this game is very lopsided. It's a Mission League contest. These guys are in the same league. But Kevin Rooney, that's the story right there, going for win number 300, Bob.
Yep, trying to go for win number 300. Only 7 other coaches in Southern California, as far as we can. Now there's some, you know, there's some wins or losses that haven't quite maybe.
Some
but
junior varsity guys.
As far as anyone knows, there are only 7 other coaches in Southern California. Bob Lattiseau, of course, from De La Salle. We were just talking about 399 wins is the top mark in all of the state of California. But in Southern California, in the state, only 7 guys have ever gotten to that mark. Most of them here in Southern California, actually.
But not to diminish what Bob Lattiser's done with his career, because he's done an outstanding job at De La Salle. But let's face it, he's the only program up north. Everybody goes there.
No, you're absolutely right. It's more impressive, I think, maybe when you look at a Marion Ansich at St. Paul and at Tustin, who won 360 games in his career.
No, 383 games.
Well, see, now some places have 360, some have 3.
You're reading old stuff.
It depends on where you look sometimes.
We put Ansich into the California High School Hall of Fame. 383 wins is the number.
I'll go with it.
All right.
I agree with it. I'll go with it.
I think Nolan Ryan had 383 strikeouts at one time in one season. So
Herb Meyer, Oceanside, John Barnes, mostly at Los Alamitos. Bob Johnson, still active on the list with over 300 wins in his career, so he's got a chance.
Gene Volnagel on that list as well. I think he was just shy. There was a big thing about Gene Volnagel from Linwood and Carson.
Mike Marujo at Valencia High School.
Yeah, Marujo.
In Placentia, the last guy to eclipse the 300-win mark before Rooney will end up doing it this year.
All right, let's take a look at some other games we want to look at. But again, that's a pretty good game. Taking a look at Edison San Clemente. This is a big game. You know, Edison with the new coach, San Clemente with the same old stuff. San Clemente's just burning it up right now. They're going to match up with Mission Viejo, probably undefeated at the same time, Bob. This is a good game for Edison with White gone, Coach White gone. This is going to be their matchup. This is going to be the signature game. Are they still the Edison of old, or they have been living a lie all season? San Clemente's going to let us know real quick.
Absolutely. And San Clemente has been a football factory for the past 7 or 8 years now. Really strong. The quarterbacks have come out of San Clemente. You ever heard of Sam Darnold?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. San Clemente
San Clemente?
High School.
Yeah. Oh, come on.
San Clemente High School, right?
Yeah, apparently he did.
You know, big time program down there at San Clemente. We'll see.
I thought he walked on from Lakeside Junior High, bro. That's where I thought they're coming from.
Almost.
All right, let's take a look at a couple more games before we go off the air here. We're running up against the clock. And take a look at Bishop Amat Loyola again. Amat, I got to give Amat credit. They played everybody so far this year. They haven't been able to get past anybody.
If you can say NBA's played a strong 0-4, that's Amat.
What I want to tell you is this is a setup, this is a trap game for Loyola. I'm picking Amat to beat Loyola this week.
I will too. I'm picking Amat as well in that one. I think Amat is a stronger program. Throw that 0-4 right off the screen.
And the last game we want to look at is a Trinity League game. It's Orange Lutheran. This week is taking on St. John Bosco. It's not a game I think Orange Lutheran wants to play right now, but they may as well get it over with.
Well, somebody has to get Mater Dei week 1 of league. Somebody has to get Bosco week 1 of league. That's the way it works, and we're going to find out right about Orange Lutheran right away. If Orange Lutheran is what they think they are with Helinski at quarterback, then we're going to see if they can take on Bosco here. I still give Bosco a big edge in this one.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see, Bob. We've always had always have good previews, and I guess that's about as good as we're going to get because we're out of time this week. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this week here on the SoCal Prep Report. On behalf of Bob Gibson, the crew here, I'm Richard Estrella saying so long. We'll see you next week. Get out and see a game this weekend. There's only like 6 weeks left of the regular season. Then it becomes real. Talk to you next week.